Hello everyone, we are back with another Disney review. My apologies for being a week late on this one. My Mac is doing some crazy shit recently and it keeps white screening on me and it's working right now, so this will be going up, well, if you're watching this, happy Christmas, I will say that. This will be going up on the 25th of December, so hopefully happy Christmas, happy holidays, whatever you celebrate. Hopefully you're all having a good time, and I don't know how many of you will be tuning in on Christmas Day to watch a review on a 1946 Disney animated classic movie called Make Mine Music, but here we go anyway. We've got many more films to do, and we keep losing weeks due to technology, so hopefully things are all right now. And
I will be 40 when we finish this.
we're gonna be so old. I'm older than you, so
Exactly.
yeah.
You're closer to 40 than you are 20.
Oh, thank you so much for reminding me of that. Right, yeah, as I said, this is the 1946 film Make My Music, number 8. We are still in single digits, but we're almost, a couple of weeks away, we're almost double digits, which is going to be a hell of a milestone. This is the musical anthology film. It was released by RKO Radio Pictures, as a lot of these earlier ones were. Kind of the preamble, I guess, before we get into this film. We're very new to this film. We have both watched this film as of today. Today being, we are pre-recording this on the 22nd of December. So this is the first day that we both watched it. World War II was happening, obviously, right before this point, 1946, it was all over. But during the making of this film, a lot of the Disney staff were either out fighting and were actually drafted into the war. Some of them remained to produce various propaganda films and various other US government-funded projects. Well, those are the two films that were reviewed last time, Saludos Amigos and The Three Caballeros. So they had to just kind of look at the projects that they had going, any unfinished story ideas or anything they had lying around, and they kind of cobble it together in what was called a package film, and they released 6 of these package films. This is the third. As I said, the first was Saludos Amigos, second Three Caballeros, and then we have Make Mine Music. Very interesting about this film is that it's really hard to find, and this actually kind of blew my mind. It actually wasn't released on DVD in the UK until 2013. So 10 years ago, in my head, some people are going, oh, 10 years is a long time. In my head, that's really, really late for a Disney film, especially a Disney animated classic. And even in the UK, it's unrestored, but it does have all of the segments intact, but there's still some parts that have been edited. It's one of those Disney films, again, that's
Like
been
the color of her
tweaked
tap,
and...
it's all
Yeah.
weird edits though. It didn't make it. None of the edits are things that what was one in Fantasia with the little black goat
Oh, the
things
Centaur. The Centaur,
yeah,
yeah.
at least things like that. I say make sense, but you know what I mean. At least they make sense and so you get where it's coming from. With this,
Yeah.
none of it did. Like I struggled to because I watched them just before, and I struggled to see any difference aside from colors, which I thought, well, what's the point? So yeah, it's weird. That's why it's weird that this is the only Disney classic that's not available on. It's not on Amazon Prime. It's not on Disney Plus. And it's hard, even if you search for it on Amazon to get the DVD, it's like a US import and they're all used. It's not like a new one you can buy somewhere. It's really, really hard.
As far as I know as well, not even Disney Animated Classic. It's got, as of 2022, Make My Music is the only Disney animated film that isn't on Disney Plus. So if we're
Weird, isn't it?
extrapolating that out to everything Disney's ever produced, I expect there's some other ones that aren't on there as well. But yeah, I don't know if that's specifically just animated classic. If it's animated film in general, that shit's crazy. And I don't know why. I really don't know why, because...
I wonder whether it's the first segment. I think only reason I think it is because they use guns in the first segment, which isn't obviously isn't really a thing, but because of the gun violence in America, you know how they stopped what's the bald dude called? Elmer Fudd. Him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he carries a gun, but in the new Looney Tunes, he doesn't. He's not
Doesn't he
allowed to carry
actually?
a gun.
Oh, wow.
No, neither is Yosemite Sam. They're not allowed to. They have axes and stuff. So if they can go that extreme, I wouldn't put it past the fact that they've got guns in it. I wouldn't put it past that.
I was actually going to bring up the whole Elmer Fudd thing. I didn't know that about modern day Looney Tunes. That's crazy. Because, yeah, okay, there's guns in it, but it's so slapsticky. Like, it's not...
Yeah.
No one's getting their brains blown out in, like, horrible, gory fashion. It's just like,
Well,
whatever.
they are in America in schools, apparently.
Well... Yeah. Yes,
Yeah,
they are.
To be fair, like it's really weird because obviously not being over there, it's one of those things of we think it one, it might be overhyped, two, it might not be, but we're not over there. Whereas being over there, that they do actually censor quite a lot of to do with gun stuff, especially in kids shows. So like I say, I do believe that's the reason, but I couldn't find an official reason.
Yeah, it was even when it was released in the States in 2000, it had that whole entire first segment, the Martins and the Coins, that was completely gone. And yeah, it was sexualized imagery in the segment called All the Cats Join In. Now, I went into it knowing that there were edits, but I found a Japanese Laserdisc version, which was just completely uncut. And I was waiting for something, like you mentioned in Fantasia, where you look at it and go, that's the thing there. And I didn't see anything at all. Apparently there's like a bit of side boob action, which I've watched the comparison video and it's negligible, but the one thing that really irks me about what I'm assuming is the restored version in terms of the animation quality and everything was just the fact how they've completely changed the color palette. Now, I don't know if it's in that one segment or if it's kind of a uniform color grade between all of them. I haven't checked comparison videos between the quality on all of them, but I really just kind of hate that how you are in many ways changing the original artist's intention and choices of those colors. And some people might think I'm reading too much into it and things like that, and just, the segment's still exactly the same, but the feel of it is completely different. By changing the colors, the original colors are a lot darker, it's a lot more warmer feel, and you kind of get that from the animation. You get like a sense of like this really kind of like the heat of the summer, I guess. I don't know, I'm reading loads into it, but the warmth of the colours, the colour palette means things in films. That's why things get colour graded. And then completely gutting those colours and changing them or making it less saturated than before or brighter than before, it does change the visual mood of what you're watching. And for something like this, where it is very similar to Fantasia in a way, how you've got these segments, some of which just play out to music, other ones have narration and voiceover and things like that. It's important because it infers a feeling within you as a viewer.
I'd be interested to see the eyes of there's in the Casey and the Sunshine Band, that bit Casey Bats Again.
Yeah.
The girls that have literally just the blue eyes, just blue. There's no, because it's not everyone in that segment. Because I did look, I was like, their eyes are just blue. All of them remind me of Tinkerbell. All of them do. But everyone else, they've got pupils and everything. Those, they're just blue. I'd be interested to see how different that looks, because that's something that does stand out.
Yeah, you're talking about the girls that are fawning over Casey.
And it's an interesting segment because they're falling over him, like you say, and they all look the same. They're almost just like robots.
It reminds me of we're a good few weeks away from it, but do you remember Beauty and the Beast? How during the Gaston song, you've got those three blondes.
Yeah.
Who are all fawning over Gaston, and one's in like a red dress, one's in a green dress, one's in like a yellow dress or something, and they're all like the same character design. It kind of reminded me of something like that. I think in a couple of weeks we get something very similar in Ichabod and Mr. Toad as well.
It reminded me of American Psycho, to be fair.
Well, everyone looks the same.
Yeah. That's the first thing I thought of. I don't know why, but that's
an interesting. I've got to segue somehow now onto the Martin and the Coys, and I don't really know how I'm going to do that. Good fucking movie, by the way, though. American Psycho. That's one of my favorites. Let's just so this has got 10 segments. Some of them are really, really short, so we won't have loads to say. We're just going to go through all of them. I guess before we do, we probably should have opened with this. General opinions on Make Mine Music. I mean, you literally finished watching this about, like half hour ago or so? What were your opinions on this film as a whole?
I think it's weird that it's not on Disney Plus because it's such an easy watch. Because I watched it differently. Like when I say I watched it differently, the first I watched segment by segment kind of thing, but I didn't even watch the segments in order. So to me, it was just watching a couple of cartoons that could have been on in the background. It's such an easy watch, and they're all equally as good. Because it's like when when we first started talking about it, and I was like, my favorite is the first one I had was Casey Bats Again, and then do you know what? I'm really bad at remembering the exact segments names, but the cat one with the drawings. Then I went.
The cats join in, yeah.
Exactly. Then I went, oh, that's got the best music. Then I went, well, no, the first one though, I remember it because of the music. So it's all very. I don't think there's a superior. I think they're all as good as
Mm.
each other. I think it's one of those where it's a great thing, but I still maybe it's because of the way I watched it, but it's not a movie. It's loads of shorts. It's not a movie.
Well, it's an
Like,
anthology
yes,
film. Yeah, yeah, it's an
exactly.
anthology
I
film.
mean, yes, Saludos Amigos and stuff. Yeah, they kind of have those kind of things. But there's a title before everyone. It's this. It's this. It's this. It's not a movie. You could easily have it on just a random Disney DVD of loads of Disney shorts, random ones here and there. It's not going to make a difference.
And that's what it was designed to do, and a lot of them were. As I mentioned, like the Peter and the Wolf one, I remember seeing at some point. I don't know which DVD it was on. In fact, I think Disney Videos, right around the time they were cranking out all the Disney sequels, they were releasing little collections of like three animated shorts or something on one VHS cassette. I remember them doing that, and there was a bunch of different volumes. I think they went up to like volume 7 or 8 or something like that, I remember, and each one had about 3 on there. So I think they've got the Mr. Toad one from Ichabod and Mr. Toad, and it's just that segment. And then there was a Peter and the Wolf one, and I can't remember what all the other segments were. But yeah, that's what they were designed to do. I really enjoyed this one. I went in thinking, oh, this is probably going to be the same kind of feel, the same kind of takeaway that I had from like Saludos Amigos and Three Caballeros, where I'm like, I'm probably going to watch this once and never come back to it. But then knowing that the whole music angle thing, that it possibly is going to be similar to Fantasia in a way. This doesn't even come close to Fantasia, I will say that. Like, Fantasia is still grandiose and you've got the budget and, you know, it's wonderful. But you mentioned this as well with this one, which is why it feels so disconnected, and how you can take any of these segments and put them on whatever. There's no framing device in this film. There's no Donald Duck is celebrating his birthday and catching up with his cousins from Brazil. Like, there's none of that. There's, even with Saludos Amigos, I think there was a framing device as well, that we've sent our Disney artists to blah blah blah, and we're gonna draw everything. You don't get that with this one. It's just pure animation to music, and I really just kind of respect it for that. And I think all the segments themselves are so varied in terms of animation design, animation quality. Some are humorous, some are more serious. And there's just loads of variety. I think with 10 of them as well, 10 segments, that's a lot of segments. And we talked about the first thing that hit us as well, and the first thing that hit me was the pacing. It's great. It, like, at the beginning, like, the segments are like 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes max maybe, and they're just firing through them like really quickly. Obviously then you get into some of the longer ones later down the line, but it just moved really well. It's like 70 minutes, and it felt a lot quicker than Three Caballeros 70 minutes, I will say that. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Like, genuinely, I would go back to this one, or if not go back to the whole film, I would pick out which segments I like the most, and I'd watch them again. Definitely, there's loads that I would.
I could happily watch All the Cats Join In again. I could happily watch
Yeah,
that
that was
again and
really
again.
good. There's actually another. Well, it's from Fantasia 2000 actually, that reminds me very much of that now, because we talk about how we're seeing like these little seeds of things where, oh, this reminds us of this film that came out years later, and maybe they wasn't even inspired by films like this. Maybe it is completely disconnected, but we're at least noticing little connective tissues here and there. Let's start with the first one then. Most people on their videos and DVDs wouldn't have this segment, because this segment on many of them was removed entirely. It has been put back in now, at least for the UK release, and it's the Martins and the Coys. So the storyline, the rough storyline for this one, is that you've got two rival families that are feuding over whatever, and they're shooting at each other. It makes a comparison here on Wikipedia that there's the story of the Hatfields and the McCoys, who I think were two American families in Kentucky that had the same kind of quarrel, and they basically kill each and every one of each other. They just open fire at each other and they just kill both of the families. But then there's one member of the family left, a female on one side and a male on the other, and they fall in love, get married, but then I guess domestic abuse takes over, domestic violence.
It's your Romeo and Juliet, really, isn't it?
And, well, they don't both die at the end, but they just live in a
No, but
loveless marriage where they're
it's
constantly fighting with each other.
But I mean, it's your Romeo and Juliet kind of that story. Two different worlds. You know what I mean? Two different families, two like the opposing that
Yeah,
sort of
oh
stuff.
yeah,
It's that kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
vibe, which is
yeah,
what I saw from it. To be fair,
yeah. I thought this was a fun one that kickstarted everything off. The animation is quite simplistic in this one in its design, but it reminded me a lot of the kind of like silly symphonies kind of thing with this one. You get some fun stuff where all the families. Just say you get some fun stuff where both of the families are dead, but when they're in the clouds looking down and they're getting angry, and you've got like thunder and lightning and things like that, it's a harmless little opener. I don't think it's like a massive showstopper for something like this, and I do think there are better segments later on, but yeah, the reason
it's
that this was censored was just because of the depiction of gun violence, and that's it.
it's your
But
Cletus moment, really, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, basically.
But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for what it was. The music's really good in this as well.
I
I would
like
say
the
in a lot
opening
of
music.
these.
That was yeah.
Yeah, you've got the King's Men, who are the vocal group for it, and yeah, fun opener. We then move on to probably, if I'm just talking pure animation, is probably one of my favourites, and I think the reason for that is that this was originally intended to be used in Fantasia. I'm guessing the animation was mostly done or partially complete or whatever, or abandoned halfway through. And it's an egret flying through the Everglades, and you've got some like beautiful like ripples on the water, and you're just kind of like watching nature happen. And it was originally going to be put to the music Claire de Lune, which was then changed for that. Well, for this movie, and we get a song that's, well, it's called Blue Bayou by Ken Darby. It's just gorgeous animation, and apparently there is a version out there that has been released with Claire de Lune, which I would love to see how it syncs to the music, because Fantasia did a great job of stuff like that.
I think it's the slowest segment of them all, though. It's the slower, but it does fit. Like saying it should be in fact, like it could have, obviously it was going to be in Fantasia. It fits the bill very well because
Yeah.
of the kind of movie Fantasia was. I think if it was in that, I think it would have played out better. I think it's a bit slow for this. I think the rest is a lot more fast paced.
Especially sandwiched in between the Martins and the Coys, and then the next one is All the Cats Join In, which are very
Yeah,
exaggerated and very animated and very kinetic in terms of not just the music but the animation as well. Yeah, and you can definitely see an animation change between this. It's, you know how we talked about Dumbo's very cartoony with its animal design, and then you get to Bambi and it's a lot more mature looking. It's that kind of nature animation. It's more similar to Bambi, how you've got like an actual depiction of nature rather than like a crazy elaborate Mr. Stork kind of character from Dumbo, you know. But I if you're just talking about pure like the beauty of animation and music, like that, it is one of my favorites. Just from an animation standpoint, I really loved it, and as I say, I'd love to see a version with Claire de Lune to see how that would all play out. Then we get to the other one that was edited. I think it's the only other segment out of all of them that was edited. This is All the Cats Join
edited
In.
for weird reasons.
Yeah, if you want to go into a bit about that, the reasons that it was edited and things like that.
Well, it like I say, it was the thing is, it was like you said, it was the side boob thing and stuff like that, and it didn't make sense because you don't see anything. You know, it's one of those where it's colors, which doesn't make any sense. And the weirder thing that doesn't make sense about it being colors, it's drawn as it goes. So it's
Yeah.
like they basically changed the whole segment because it's colored as it goes. It's like now we're going to change that. You know what I mean? And it felt weird watching the comparison because I watched the comparison and it felt really strange being like, so what was the purpose of this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I don't know. Maybe it's a couple of colorblind people complained and they changed the colors for them, the colors that they could and couldn't see. I don't know, but it
Yeah,
felt
it's
like a strange, out of place edit.
someone's getting ready for a night out, isn't it? It's I've never heard of this term before, but as Wikipedia says, hepcat teens. Hepcat was like hipster. It's very similar to that of like the 1940s that were into blues and jazz music and things like that. And it's someone getting ready to like hit the town on a night out on a weekend, basically. And you see a jump in the shower and sort of, you know, towel off and throw clothes on everything, but it's like kids, it's done all modestly. You don't see anything, you literally don't see anything, but apparently even by not seeing anything that was still too extreme,
Well,
and
it
they
kind
had to
of
go
it
in.
reminds me of oh, what's that chick's name? Animaniacs, the one that got banned after 2 episodes, the hot one. The
Oh, the Hello Nurse.
No, not Hello Nurse. The one that was in the original. Something the Minx, not Minx. Oh, that's gonna. Oh no, she's a mink. What's the name? It's not Minnie, is it?
Oh,
Minerva Mink.
oh,
Minerva Mink? No.
yeah. That rings a bell. Hang on,
Hang on, I'm
Animania.
gonna Google it.
I need to get those on DVD actually. Yeah, Minerva Mink. Yeah.
That's it,
Oh,
Minerva Mink.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
the silhouette, because it's one of the fun ones with her. Um, by the way, she's one of the not being like being anything towards her being attractive, but I find her like her cartoons were the funniest just because watching them as an adult, it's literally that slapstick, the Tom and Jerry thing of one versus the other, and
Mm-hmm.
but instead of her having a weapon, she just turns him on 24/7. I think that's just brilliant, and I
Mm-hmm.
think as you get older, watching that is just like that's just great because as an adult it's such an implied adult cartoon and it's just so good. But like
Oh,
if there's one
Animaniacs is
where she's
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah, we could talk about her for ages, but
Mm-hmm.
but the thing is there's one where she's literally showering and she's got like the obviously the curtain over and you see the silhouette. It reminded me very much of that. Because I think they're both done very well. That's the thing. Like you say, it's this it's very well done. It's all and I think the animation of that runs so smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
Like not that I've not seen smoother animation, but watching that, going from obviously watching the others to watching this, I even said to you, I went, it's so smooth. This is the smoothest one probably it up until this point. I think maybe because it's being drawn, but the way it's being done, it's done very, very well.
Yeah, just the animation in general, and not to say like the animation was necessarily bad even in Saludos Amigos or the Three Caballeros. Three Caballeros definitely had more creative animation going on, I would say, than Saludos Amigos, comparing those two. But yeah, like the way the animation moves, and again the character designs are so different in each segment, and the energy that the music and the segment just carries on all the way through. The incomplete drawing and filling it in as it goes through was a really nice touch. I really appreciated that. And the segment that it reminds me of, or I should say, that the other segment is based on this, if that's the case, is in Fantasia 2000. There's a segment for Rhapsody in Blue. The animation is very similar, I would say, to the animation design in this. When we get to it, I'll remember to come back to this one and see if you felt the same way. But
It's very Beano and Dandy, isn't it?
yeah, definitely on the human design, the character design, and everything. Absolutely. And they're all vastly different. You look at the humans in something like Peter and the Wolf compared to the humans in this one, compared to the humans in the Martins and the Coys. It's all so different, and that's why I really appreciate it. But yeah, this was a fun segment. Really enjoyed that one. The next one is Without You. It's just about a ballad of a lost love. Andy Russell was the one who sang the song. I had to remind myself of this one because my memory was a little bit hazy and it doesn't really give much of a description other than that. It's quite abstract. I think there might be some like live action elements in it as well that have been rotoscoped maybe. But it's almost like you're watching a kaleidoscope of colour. And like it's almost like a mood ring, how it just kind of like changes colour almost like fibre optic. It's just a lot of that. It's a pretty looking segment. I really like the animation in it. It's a bit different, but it's
I think they're very. If you were to put the two together, so this one and All the Cats Join In, it's very Monsters Inc. You know the beginning of Monsters Inc.
oh yeah, you're
The
talking
intro.
about the title sequence, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
if you put them together, it's got that kind of style to it, which is really cool.
Your webcam has froze, but I can still hear you perfectly fine. So hopefully it snaps back in just a second. We've had a bit of lag with it, but hopefully it's still all okay. I can hear you fine, so it's all good. We'll just power on. The next one, okay, this was your favorite, I think you said, Casey at the Bat.
Casey and the Sunshine Band.
Reciting the poem. Apparently, it's a poem, Casey at the Bat, by Ernest Thayer. It's about an arrogant baseball player whose cockiness was his undoing. What's really interesting, and I didn't know this, because I really like this segment, I'm probably going to try and dig this out at some point. There is a sequel cartoon to this segment called Casey Bats Again, which was released in 1954. So yeah, I'm guessing that's probably on YouTube maybe somewhere. But
Hang on,
if you can track that
I
down.
I did watch that earlier. I literally did because now you said the name again. Because I remember I watched two, and I remember just kind of watched them after the other and went, Yeah, and just saw it again, and like didn't cross my mind that they were completely set in different times. But yes, I did.
Yeah, just Casey at the bat, just the first one. That's the only
Yeah,
one on this one. Yeah, but I haven't seen that one, so I'll have to try and dig that out. This was a fun one, and it really does play. I mean, I didn't know the original poem or anything like that, and it's built up so well for the punchline at the very end of the segment. The amounting tension and the really wacky, crazy animation design of you've got the pitcher, right, and he's sweating like he's terrified of Casey, and he's this, you know, prolific baseball player, and he's no match for him. And Casey gets strike one, strike two, and you can tell that, you know, oh, he's building up to a third. He's gonna like knock it out the stadium on that third one, and
I
it
think it's
builds.
the most story told segment.
Well, Peter and the Wolf probably as well. I would say though, maybe the whale one at the end too.
I don't know why Beauty and the Wolf isn't memorable for me. Like it's not like it's there. It's kind of like okay. Whereas this was more. Maybe it's because it's your very 50s. Like it's set, isn't it, in 1902 or something?
I believe it is. Yeah. Wow, your webcam is like totally froze. So this is like the audio experience that is Dale. But yeah,
You're right. That's all we
1902,
need.
1902 it's set in. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's your very. It looks very 50s. So I just saying 50s because that. But you know what I mean. It's very stylized
Mm-hmm.
for that time, and I think that's what's different. Where I didn't. Not I didn't love Peter and the Wolf style, but I just thought it was very there. It was another cartoon, whereas I think this stood out a lot more.
And I love some of like the really cartoony things they do as well. The way that characters move. One of the things that really sticks out in my mind. I don't know baseball. I don't know sports, but you know how the catcher or whatever or the pitcher will do like hand gestures, like finger gestures to the
Hmm.
person opposite them. How when he's scared of Casey, like his fingers get crossed and start to do weird things, and his fingers kind of plait themselves into almost like a ponytail, like a braided plait or something. Just little things like that, just really creative animation things that they do in this. And then obviously it's got a great payoff at the end too, which I'd be interested now to see what happens in the sequel. Does it continue, right? Is it a direct sequel? Is he trying to reclaim his career or whatever? I guess
So
I'll
you
find out.
get you get more animation. I won't tell you exactly what, but you get more like you know like the dolls. Everyone's a. Oh, I don't know. Did I say dolls earlier? But you know the girls that all look like Tinkerbell.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You get a lot of that.
The group is,
There's
yeah.
yeah, and you just the thing I like about that, like I say, it is very American Psycho. I just think it's so. He's kind of weird when you think about it. It's like a load of robots.
Hmm.
And I don't know, maybe I thought too much into this segment when I was watching it. Maybe to me, it had this whole backstory that it didn't need to. But to me, it was this big, like, I just saw it as like they were weird, they were robots. And I was like, that says more to me than just a cartoon. It was really strange.
One gets murderous at one point, doesn't she? Like when he
Yeah,
gets when he gets strike one, she sort of like gets a hairpin as like a fucking knife and goes to
what
knife the umpire or whatever. But
what I love is the dude with the, you know, the one with the mustache that bounces around. Oh, what was it?
um,
Which one was it? He had the big mustache, and then he like sticks his tongue out and he bounces around on all fours.
oh yeah, yeah, I know who you mean. Yeah, he
Yeah,
was one of the other
it,
teammates, I think, wasn't he,
yeah, it was
on the
just
batting team.
I think the whole thing is just so carefree. That's what I like about it.
Hmm.
But it's like the
Uh,
whole movie, though.
yeah, no, exactly. I was going to say it's fun and fancy free, but no, it's not. That's next week. Two Silhouettes is the next one. So it's got two rotoscoped live ballet dancers moving in silhouette with animated backgrounds and characters. Not got a lot to say about this one, really. It's a bit of a breather
Got
between
it's
the
got Cupid
previous
in it.
segment and the next one. It's got what, sorry?
Cupid.
It has got It's got two Cupids, I think,
It's
hasn't
got
it?
two little Cupids. I think it's cool. It's one of those that could be Fantasia again. It's very. It's got a lot of slow movement. So when you get like the ballet dancers and like you know the dude kissing the girl's hands, it's got very. It's very slow moving, which I think fits with Fantasia because Fantasia, you had the fast paced stuff, you had the slow paced stuff, you had this, you had that. Whereas this, like you say, it's fine. It goes between them, but I think make my music. I think it would do a lot better if it didn't have. I know the second one was one of your favorites, but if it didn't have that as much, it'd keep the same pacing.
Yeah. It
That's what I
actually
think.
it
Anyway.
reminded me of the days of old back in episode 1 where we were talking about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs with the rotoscoped human animation for the characters of Snow White, the Queen, the
It
Huntsman,
also
everything like
reminds
that.
me of Cinderella with the fountain.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can
Like it's
see
got
that.
that whole kind of thing about it. I do think the whole thing is just a whole. It reminds me of other Disney movies.
Hmm.
Like it's just there, but I do like it. I think it's good, but I do think it would have done better in Fantasia as well. I think it's one of them.
Yeah. I don't know if this would have worked for Fantasia. I must admit, with the live action maybe not. But yeah, it's fine. Like I really don't have an opinion on it. It was just like, oh, that was kind of nice. Anyway, on to the next one. This is probably one of the bigger ones, I'd say, Peter and the Wolf. Purely just because the amount of times I've seen this packaged on other videos and the character design of the wolf and Peter and the Wolf, the namesake, are very striking to me. It could be I could just be talking from pure nostalgia right now, but I have definitely seen this segment a whole bunch of times and get into this one, it's like, oh, so that's the Disney movie that it's from. I kind of had that realization for it because for the longest time I thought this was just like a separate segment that Disney had produced at some point. I didn't realize that
Well,
it had
yeah,
narration over it from Sterling Holloway, Winnie the Pooh's finest, Sterling Holloway. Yeah, and you've got the whole. I don't know if the version that you saw, because I know that you said it cut the title cards off. Did it give the introduction of how?
no, it didn't cut title cards off. That's what I'm saying. It had title cards. So
Oh,
my
okay,
question was, in the
okay,
movie full length, were
yeah,
they all
yeah, it
there, or
has
was
them.
this something like?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I also watched a version of Peter and the Wolf, narrated by David Bowie. Don't know why. Don't
Oh,
know why
okay.
that existed, but it was there, and I watched it, and I was like, "This is kind of cool, actually."
Yeah.
But
Did
yeah,
the version that you watch? Yeah, it still has all the stuff where it says for the character of Peter, we're going to use the
yeah,
string quartet. For Sasha the bird, we're going to use the flute. It did all that, right, with all the different instruments.
yeah, and it's got the Cheshire Cat in it. It is the Cheshire Cat. It looks like the
Yeah,
Cheshire Cat.
it's the Cheshire Cat. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like this. I mean, I like that piece of music anyway. I like when musical scores use different instruments to represent a certain character or a certain leitmotif and things like that. I've always loved that in music. So yeah, I mean, it's quite on the nose explained by Sterling Holloway at the beginning, and I'm like, I get it. I'd be able to pick that up, but if kids were watching it, whatever, it's introducing them to music and things like that. That's
Well, isn't that what
absolutely
happens when
fine.
you get married?
Hmm?
Isn't that what happens when you get married? A lot of stuff where you're like, yeah, I get it, but sure.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's what happens when you get married. You get things over explained to you that you go, yeah, I know that is the case, but thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I really like this segment, although in my cynical old age, I kind of wish that Sonia the duck remained dead at the end. There were real stakes. I actually couldn't remember the story of Peter and the Wolf, so I thought that the fucking duck's gonna die, and then the bird's gonna die, and then the cat's gonna die, and it's just gonna be Peter and the Wolf, and then he's gonna save the day at the end. But it's so tacked on at the end. It's just like, oh, but the duck survived. You see the spirit of the duck go up to the pearly fucking gates. You see the pearly gates twice in this film, actually. And the pearly gates actually close the whole film out as well with the final story. So yeah, like the cynic in me would be like, I would like a bit more maturity and stakes to the story, and watching all these lovable, furry, fluffy Disney characters just die by being eaten by a wolf. But
Is it me, or do all wolf animations? So like in this, and then you've got it in like the Three Little Pigs animations that you see. I can't remember. I think it was Disney that did that.
yeah, yeah, it
The
was.
wolf
Yeah.
always has. It's always a really long nose.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do feel like a lot of things Disney uses. That's the great thing about going back to all of these is they're not the same, but it's kind of like Wile E. Coyote and the guy with the sheep wolf, the wolf with Sam the sheepdog. I can't remember the wolf's name, but they're exactly the same, except they just have different coloured noses. They
Yeah.
are different characters, but I feel like it's the same in this. Like they use a lot of, they go, well, we can use that character, change them up a bit. I feel like they use a lot of that, which is quite cool to see. It's the same with the cats in this. Remind me of the Chinese cats, the
What in?
Siamese. That's it.
Oh, in Lady and the Tramp.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. I was thinking Aristocats for a second, but yeah, yeah. The Chinese cats. It reminds me of them a little bit. Like the movements and the face movement reminds me of yeah, the Chinese cats.
Well, there is a Chinese cat in Aristocats
Yeah, but
during
I'm on
the
about
Everybody
yeah.
Wants to Be a Cat.
Hang on, I'm getting them all confused, aren't I? I'm putting all the
And
cats together.
he plays chopsticks on the piano
Yes. Why am I getting?
whilst using chopsticks. And
Yes,
yeah,
that's Aristocats, though, isn't it?
that's Aristocats.
Okay, so that's what I meant, but I got them confused with the Siamese things. But yeah, you know what I
I
mean, though.
can
But it all
understand why you'd get them confused.
yeah, but it all reminds me of the same because if you look at the face, it's very similar. Like it does look the same, and then when a cat does the hypnotizing thing, it looks like a Cheshire cat. So
Yeah.
again, you can see so much, which is just what you would see in cartoons. The same with when we spoke about the punching. What did we call it? You know, when they're all punching each other in like a little cloud.
Yeah, we never came up with a term for that, did we? But I know what you
Yeah,
mean.
but it's like that. It's like it's really cool to see, and I think this is the best bit about watching all the movies. It's good to see those things and go, "Hang on, that's from that."
Hmm.
But then you realise it's 50 years before. It's really cool.
But yeah, I don't really have much else to say on this one. I thought this segment would be longer. I thought this was going to be like a proper short film kind of thing, but it's not. It's like a really tiny little segment. But yeah, it was nice to just track the origin point of this one because I've seen it on separate things before to go, oh, okay, so that is from Make Mine Music then. The next one
It's the longest one, isn't it?
Oh, probably, yeah. I'd probably say that or the whale one might be the longest too.
Maybe.
I don't know. Casey and the Bat felt like it went on for quite a bit as well.
I think that was just a tad shorter. I
Mm-hmm.
think, but I don't know. I'll have to have a look at the times.
This next one was kind of a bit forgettable for me as well. Even though one of the characters is on the main poster. After You've Gone, which is you've got 6 anthropomorphized instruments, and they're just sort of cavorting around a musical background. It's very colourful. It's very bright and kinetic, and it moves at a very frantic pace. It's quite a short one, this one. Speaking of things that it reminds us of, eventually, the anthropomorphic instruments and stuff kind of reminds me a little bit of Beauty and the Beast with the household items. A little
Yeah,
bit. I think specifically the reason why I'm thinking Beauty and the Beast is, did you ever see the Beauty and the Beast sequel, the direct-to-video sequel, The Enchanted Christmas?
the one with the organ.
Yeah, Tim Curry as Forte, the organ.
That was great.
It was really good. Yeah, it's got some really good music in that as well. But there was a character who was like the Forte's sidekick, I guess, called Fife, who was like a little piccolo that sort of like waddled around as a musical instrument. I probably that's what I was thinking of when I saw this segment. When I saw a
That
trumpet
makes
or a
yeah.
clarinet walking around, maybe I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense actually. Yeah, that does make sense.
But I think I probably have more to say on Beauty and the Beast: The Enchanted
Yeah,
Christmas
I
than I
thought
do
it.
on the After You've Gone segment.
I was gonna say I thought it was fine, like you say. It was there. It was okay. It's not memorable though. Like really,
Hmm.
if the if it's not one of the like the ones I'd remember, I would. Well, I've already said, but I'll say at the end again. I'll point out the exact ones I remember, but it's not one of the ones that would stand out.
Hmm. I actually really like the next one. I like the song in this one. You've got Johnny Fedora and Alice Bluebonnet. I quite like this one. I thought this was creative. The song stuck in my head more so than a lot of the other ones. And it's a romantic story about 2 hats falling in love in a department store and his quest to try and track her down. I really liked it. Apparently this segment was released theatrically as well, like some of the other segments too. So yeah, I can't imagine going to the cinema to see this specifically though, because it's really short. It's like 5 minutes long, isn't it, if that? But
Yeah, but
I quite liked it.
all of them were when you went to the cinema years and years ago. Like when you watch cartoons, because that's what they were, though, weren't they? So
I guess this would like be before something else, right? Or it'd be like a whole bunch of them packaged together, like this film, I guess. But
yeah. To be fair, I didn't think
um,
of it like that because, like I say, a lot of them. Because how short are normal cartoons really? Like Disney cartoons,
like
like Steamboat Willie.
90 minutes, something like that, and say 90
No,
probably.
Steamboat Willie.
Those old, yeah, oh yeah. If you're talking about the old school ones, yeah, definitely,
That's what
really
I'm
short.
saying. So it's not. it doesn't like. I don't think it would. It would still play even. Sorry, like it's 5 minutes. I don't think it's too short.
And then the final one is probably one of the more comprehensive ones. It's finale, The Whale Who Wanted to Sing at the Met. This was another one that I'd heard of, and the character of that whale I'd definitely seen before. So it's a bittersweet story about a whale who's an opera singer, and well, it's as the title says, he wants to sing at the Met. He wants to have this long, talented career of being an opera singer. And then it becomes sort of like very Moby Dick. You've got this sea captain who sees this whale and hears him singing, and he believes, it's impossible that this whale could be a singer. He must have swallowed not one, not two, but three opera singers. So he makes it his life's mission to hunt down this whale and kill this whale for recompense. And we see this illustrious career of this whale on stage singing all different genres of opera and different stage productions and everything. And then we get hit. And this is why I like this one, because it hits you with that mature side at the end that he was actually killed at sea. And he never got to have that illustrious career that he wanted to. But in heaven, he can sing with the choirs of the angels behind the pearly gates, and his voice will magnify 1,000-fold, and he will be able to in heaven keep singing his song and bringing joy to everyone. So it's a bittersweet ending to the film, I guess, but I really like this segment, and the
like
the
we all
voice
die
as
in
well.
the end.
Yeah, it's good to be reminded of that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite a sobering thought. But the music, so Nelson Eddy narrated and performed all the voices in this segment. So when you get like the 3-part male, like the trio, and then you've got the sextet as well of the male vocals at the opera. He did every single voice, just that one guy, and he's got a good voice for opera. He's a very talented guy. So Nelson Eddy, was the voice. I like the segment. What did you think to this one?
See, I liked it. I thought it was colourful as well. That's the thing. It's a colourful segment. It's fun, and the thing is, like you say, it has the end, which to me it was very. I didn't really think much. Not that I didn't think much of the end. That sounds weird. Like I didn't like it, but to me, I thought the whole thing was quite colourful. I didn't really see the sadness in it.
Yeah,
and like the thing is, it is the end of the whole thing. Obviously, the curtain closes, everything done, and like you say, he did all the voices. It's like in Van Halen's in Van Halen 3, where Eddie Van Halen it was just him, the last song, the end song, boom, and that was it. It reminded me of that, So
I thought you were gonna go with the fact that the singer's called Nelson Eddy. And you were going to say that it's not spelt the same, though. This is Eddy. So this is an IE.
Exactly. That's
so,
nothing.
Yeah,
that's nothing the same. There's no relation there at all.
No. I'm glad you remembered, because I was going to stop this whole thing if you didn't give me a Van Halen reference by the end of this thing.
I was waiting for the right moment. Because it ends just like Van Halen 3. He does all the voices, does everything on there, and also dies at the end. There's that too.
Oh.
But anyway.
Wow. And just like the film, we want to end this with a bittersweet note. On Christmas Day, no less. Happy Christmas, everyone.
To be fair, I do...
Go on.
I do think this is one that, like... I said it about... Which one was it? Was it Saludos Amigos? Where I said it's one you'd put on the background for your kid?
Mm-hmm.
Was it that one? I think this holds up so much more. But I wouldn't see it as a movie you put on in the background. I don't. It's all segments. I don't think it's just because the way I watched it, but I do think because there's no relation. Like Fantasia, at least it was a consistent opera, thing going on. Whereas this was shorts as we know them. And I think the thing that worked better about this movie than like Three Caballeros is it wasn't trying to be something. It just did its thing. I went, here you go, here's some stuff. And the only thing it tried to do was they put it all together and went, next Disney classic, which they shouldn't have done. It shouldn't be a Disney classic, I don't think. But I think they should just be segments that were released. And the weird thing about it is, if they were, let's say they were released as segments on, in the cinema as they were then, just randomly, they would have been forgotten about, wouldn't they? A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd argue Make My Music is forgotten about because you can't find it anywhere. So the popularity probably would have... I guess it's higher because it's a Disney classic, but like you say, like I say, they've been forgotten about a lot. Like, has Disney released? You know, you've got a DVD of it, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But this, I'm
So they've
assuming what it said,
re-released.
this one wasn't released until 2013, this
Yeah,
DVD.
and the thing is, so they have re-released it in a sense to make because it's a Disney classic, so it wouldn't have got that treatment if it was. But I'd also argue it's a Disney classic that's it's got that treatment because it's a Disney classic. But I don't know how to explain this. But if it wasn't a Disney classic, no one's missing out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not something that you think it is a Disney classic. So, but I think the reason it works as a movie much better is because it doesn't try to be something it's not.
Yeah, I admired the charming simplicity of this one. It's just a bunch of sort of, well, completely disconnected segments, loads of different animation styles to it, loads of different energy, and there's nothing that necessarily ties them together, but I can appreciate all 10 of these segments. There wasn't a segment that I distinctly hated or really disliked or anything like that. There's some that there's more to say about other ones, and others are just more background viewing. Other ones are more story driven and you can pay attention, and whether it's the Casey at the Bat, which is really funny and you want to pay attention to it because of all the quirky humor in there, whether it's just got great music to it and the hand-drawn animation style of all the cats join in, you've got more story-driven one of Peter and the Wolf. There's loads here, and honestly, this film was way better than I was expecting it to be. Not that I'm like down on this Disney retrospective, because you know we're going to go through the peaks and the wanes of all of the Disney animated catalogue, but this slump, it's like we knew what we were getting in for. After Bambi, we're like, oh, okay, so World War II's raging on, or we're just getting over that, and we're going to get a lot of these smaller films. I'm kind of aware of that, so I thought this was just going to be a whole bunch of nothing with barely anything to say, kind of like Three Caballeros and the Saludos Amigos. But I really had a great time with this one. It ain't no Fantasia. Don't get me wrong. It certainly isn't. It doesn't come anywhere close to the grandiose quality of Fantasia, but it's in that same ballpark. And actually, not next week, but the following week, I keep forgetting, we've got another music one. So Disney really likes, especially around this time, it's music films. Melody Time. That's one that I keep forgetting about too. So I'm wondering if that's going to be very similar in a way. So yeah, you got like Fantasia, Make My Music, probably Melody Time as well, and then Fantasia 2000. So we've got quite a lot of music
The thing is, you can do a lot with music that you because you don't have not that you don't have to have a story. There is a story, but you don't have to have dialogue. You don't have to have this. You don't have to have this. It can be very. It's kind of like playing an old SNES game where everything is kind of what you make it. Like obviously, there's the writing. There's that. It's the same with this. There's the music. The characters obviously do their own thing, but it is your own interpretation of it rather than it's kind of a comparison where let's say you watch Dumbo. There's obviously a narrative going on. The characters speak. They say this. You're watching it from beginning to end. And then you watch this. It's very... You've got your own interpretation of a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like if you were to play an old Final Fantasy game, like a SNES game, you've got your own interpretation to an extent of obviously there's the narrative. But the characters are little sprites. You've got to kind of make up in your head what they'd look like. Whereas now, your big HD game is all there for you. You know, it's a good... I think that's what does really well with these kind of music parts. So it'd be kind of sad in a way going to when you get to Cinderella and stuff that we're not being just entertained by music anymore.
Yeah, and we won't be for a long time actually. It's pretty much all story driven from that point up until Fantasia 2000, which is crazy. So
Which
yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll look back on these package films, these 6 package films, and go like, oh, we yearn for the day of going back to something like Ichabod and Mr. Toad. I don't know. I must admit, I'm so ready to get to Cinderella because it's been so long. And then the one after that is Alice in Wonderland, and then dude, we've got Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp, Sleeping Beauty.
Did you ever watch Return to Neverland?
I did. I have that on video. Yeah.
I remember going to cinema to see that, and I felt like it was a 5-minute movie. It was so short.
I don't think it was that short. Yeah, it's Wendy's daughter,
happened.
isn't it? And it's basically they get rid of the crocodile and replace it with an octopus, and it just does exactly the same thing. And it's like instead of like tick tock, it's like popping the suckers on its tentacles,
and nothing else happens.
And nothing else happens. Yeah, it was.
It just goes around Neverland, and that's it.
I tell you what, film I don't hate though, and a film that you certainly don't hate. Next week we have Fun and Fancy Free. Finally, we've arrived at it. Number 9. I have a lot of fond memories with this one. I had this on video. It's one of the ones from around this era that I did manage to track down on VHS, and I loved it. There is a very questionable segment in there, though, that even when I watched it as a kid, I thought was really out of place and creepy, and that just means that it's going to be even
I relate
creepier
to the
now.
giant quite a lot, to be fair.
Yeah, I remember the song is like fee fi fo fum he hi ho.
Bye,
ho,
fo,
or
fee, fum,
something.
yeah.
Yeah, I see. I remember that. I haven't watched it since I was a kid. I remember that.
The retarded giant.
There's a bear who falls in love with a lady bear at the beginning, and yeah, and then there's a creepy old guy with a ventriloquist dummy, and he's got a girl at his apartment, like a little girl, and he's offering her ice cream, and he's talking to her through this creepy ventriloquist dummy. That's the part that's going to be really creepy.
Well, who
and
hasn't
uncomfortable
done
to watch. I need to, yeah. I'm surprised they haven't edited that out. Actually, now I come to think of it, in Hollywood and Disney, I'm not surprised that they haven't edited that segment out. And on that very wholesome bombshell on a Christmas day, we will bid you a very fond farewell, and we'll see you next week, which will be New Year's Day. That's going to be a pre-recorded one for some fun and fancy free. So we'll see you next time.
Isn't it weird that this is the last Monday of the year?
That is yeah. That.
This is the last Monday that I'm 29, that I'm in my 20s. No, it's not the last Monday. Hang on, no. It's the last Christmas day. That's not as weird. That's fine. Don't worry about it. We're all good.
Lie down.